Hello everyone, I'm the Clerk of Frome Town Council, Paul Wynne, and this is the first meeting of the new Community and Place Committee. And the first job on the agenda is to elect the chair. And are there any proposals for chair?
I would like to propose Carla Collinette as the chair.
Is there any second? So I probably saw Anne's arm up first, so proposed Fiona, seconded Anne, and all those in favour? That's you. Are you voting? That's a. I vote myself. You can. That's unanimous. Over to you, Carla.
Thank you. I'm already winning because someone likes my dress. Thank you, everybody. My first act as chair is I would like to propose to have a deputy because although I'm committed to chairing this committee, I do have 2 young children and it's possible there are times that I won't be able to come. So I would like to propose Sarah as deputy of this committee.
And there's a seconder. Anita would love to second that. And that's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This is the very first meeting of Frome Town Council's Community and Place Committee. I'm Carla Collinette and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everyone, we've got people online and here in the room. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. The emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room and the assembly point is the far side of the car park. Toilets are at the end of the corridor on the right and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift, kind of in that corner. Help yourself to a cup of tea or water. Tonight, Paul will clerk, Rachel and Laura will manage the minutes, question boards, participant settings and the IT generally. The meeting will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, do we have any via Zoom? No, okay. If they do suddenly appear, they can use the yellow hand, and for everyone else, ask questions through the question and answer board or in the room. Remember to use your mics. So we decided to set up the meeting in this way to be even more collegiate. I know we're very collegiate, so whenever anyone joins, and this is how it will look, but we might forget to use mics because it's in a different setting, and if you're not close enough to one, there's a spare one here. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of the agenda, I wanted to take a moment to set the tone of how I intend to chair these meetings and share how I hope we can work together. I believe in putting people before politics, working with curiosity rather than certainty, and focusing on what will genuinely help this town thrive. That's the spirit I'd like to bring into this role. And I want to create a space here that's respectful, constructive, and collaborative, avoiding the usual competitive language and approach of politics. I want this committee to be a place where different views are welcomed, where we're willing to challenge assumptions, including our own, and where we stay grounded in the practical realities of what's best for Frome and the people who live here. As chair, I see my job as helping us stay focused, making sure everyone has the chance to contribute, and ensure we create a culture where we can work well together, even when we don't agree. So later on in the agenda, we will have a discussion about how we want to work together and how we want to use this committee. But for now, let's get on with the rest of the agenda. Apologies for absence.
We've got apologies from Andy Jones, Lisa Merriweather and Nick Dove. Someone to propose to accept.
Would someone like to propose to accept those apologies? Ben? Second. Mark? You're seconding?
That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And now questions and comments from... Oh, sorry. Any declarations of interest from councillors? Silence. No? Any questions from the public or councillors? I think you might be the only member of the public. You might be the only member of the public in the room. Did you have any questions? You don't have to have one. Just this would be your moment if you did.
Hello. Christ. My name is Louise Rachel Davidge, and I really, really love your dress, by the way. Absolutely freaking amazing. So beautiful. Beautiful. But I need to address some issues. The usual.
The usual dog poo and parking? Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit more? Okay. Do you have like, a specific example or a specific request?
Earlier, I came out of the apartment, and where the flowers, all the petals died. Yes, shut up. So, with the dog's mess, and it's not my dog. So I've only just recently come back from being home. So I helped her doing this mess. So.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where, so in case we can...
Outside my apartment, at the front. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful flipping dress though, it's done this, it's done.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, I don't want to ask you where you live, because then you'll be giving your address in public, but in order for us to kind of address that and help you, we probably do need a bit more information. So I don't know if you want to talk to one of us privately afterwards.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Yes. Yeah, that's what, so each of us is assigned a different part of the town. So we can talk to you afterwards and find out what ward you're in, and then which councillor would be responsible for that ward. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Because I was walking down by the river today, and I have mentioned it before, but it was quite noticeable that one of the life belts was missing along the river, so I wondered if perhaps we could look into that, please.
Whereabouts, Anita?
It's if you're walking from the park, from the Welshmill Adventure Park, it's on the right-hand side of the river, going towards the roundhouse.
Okay, so it's
Okay.
near the, within...
By the weir, by the weir,
By
by the weir.
I'll pass it on to Rob.
Thank you. Welcome, Bob. I'll give you a moment to settle, but we're just at the stage where we're asking if anyone from the public has any questions that are not related to the agenda. So this would be the moment if you did have a question. If you feel okay to ask that straight away. I'm aware you've just arrived. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, you just need to switch it on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. We're a bit late. So Bob and I are here from the Broadway Traffic Group, just to introduce ourselves, really. So we're a group of residents from Broadway. There's about 30 of us, being represented by me and Bob here, and we're experiencing some issues with traffic on the road. So it's namely speeding, people driving on the pavement, so it's often heavy goods vehicles, and confusion over priority, which is also causing some issues. So we only formed in April of this year, but some of you will have probably heard from us and had contact with us. So it's just to say we're the people behind the email addresses. And if possible, we'd like to come back in August and present to you some of the evidence we've gathered. So everyone's pulled together photographs. And celebrate your birthday too. So
bring cakes.
We will. We'll try and bring cake. So thank you very much. And we'll see you again at another meeting.
Thank you. And so obviously I live in the ward. I know the troubles that we have with the traffic in Broadway. And I also wanted to give you, I'm glad that you came, thank you, and you're welcome to come again in August and present. But also, seeing as you're here, we wanted to give you an update on where we are with us lobbying to get a crossing at Broadway. So I'm just going to pass to, do you have an update?
I do.
Excellent.
Paul sent an email on behalf of myself as chair and leader of Town Council and Anna Sabine, our MP, to Councillor Richard Wilkins, who is the lead councillor for this area of work at Somerset Council, and CC'd in Duncan Sharkey, who is the chief exec. I thought so. And we sent it yesterday. I brought it up in a meeting that I had with Anna Sabine last week, because I think, Carla, you had a meeting with her and asked her to come in on this letter with us. And I sort of mentioned it again and asked if she could look at it, which she did. And it is around we did initially, through school streets, there was initially sort of funding secured by Sustrans for crossing at both the Butts and Broadway, as I think you know. The Butts one has gone ahead, but Somerset Council, for various different reasons, sort of chose not to put a crossing in. So we are asking them to have another look at that, to look at all of the reasons why it is so important, particularly around sort of the safety of children in the area. And they had said that the problems and issues we identified above meant that we couldn't be confident a safe and compliant design could be achieved. But we said that, we think something is better than nothing and what can be done. And we have asked them to have another look at it as well. So that email did go yesterday. And Anna is, we talked about it and she's very supportive. So it has come from it went from both of us. That is hot off the press from yesterday.
Thank you. Is it related?
Thank you. Yes, yeah. The other thing is that because I take on the lead for road safety around Frome, I've had a lot of messages, as you can imagine, about lots of areas in Frome, but particularly around Broadway. We actually have a quarterly meeting here to talk about all things road safety, to talk about where the speed indicator devices go. We talk about 20-mile limits and all sorts of things about safer driving. And our next meeting is coming up on the 9th of July. And I know that Broadway will be on that agenda. I think probably there's very little more we can do than what Fiona's already addressed in terms of petitioning and what have you, and getting a lot of influence on side. But nevertheless, it will be discussed. And if there's anything further that we can add to that, I'm sure we can get back in touch with you.
Can we just have, because there's people online and they won't be able to hear you otherwise.
It's already on.
Okay, Bob Curran, I helped set up the BTG group. What I wanted to say, it's just escaped me now, isn't it? Yeah, I'm in touch with the police because one of the things is enforcement. It's a 30-mile-an-hour limit. People drive up there at 60 and 70 miles an hour. It's a 7.5-ton weight limit. I believe there's only 2 vehicles that have actually got a license to drive. And although agricultural machinery, yes, maybe, lots of heavy lorries use it. And I don't think they should be, but there's no enforcement of anything. And since the Safer Roads Scheme made everywhere else 20 miles an hour down to Victoria Park, halfway through Critchhill, Broadway now is a favoured route. Oh, well, we won't bother with that. We'll go up Broadway because we can speed up there like pillocks.
We do, if it helps, we've now just had confirmation that we've got a speed enforcement unit, which is actually going to be based in Frome. Now, it's going to serve Frome and the wider area, so it won't always be here. But I know the guys who operate that, and I'm sure if we were to have a word, I'm not saying they would sit there 24 hours a day, but I'm sure they could periodically look in on it, which might help a little bit to alleviate some of those issues, but certainly we'll put it on the radar during that meeting for them.
I'm in touch with Ashley Ree, I'm a community speed watch coordinator now. What I've got to get is volunteers who are prepared to actually participate, and we can do the training and get more evidence collected in the work.
Yeah, Ashley's working. Ashley will be at that meeting, and he works very closely with us. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Shall we move on to discussing why we're here and how we want to run this committee, basically? So me and Paul met earlier today, and we have some ideas, but obviously we've got members of the committee here and staff members. So it's an open discussion. And it's really whether in the past we've had kind of updates, or we've used the RAG rating. We've got 4 areas that this committee is responsible for overseeing. Would you like me to kind of make the suggestion first and then discuss it? Would that work? Yeah. So the idea is that thanks, Bob, in order that we get time for meaningful discussion and debate, that rather than covering all 4 each time, that we in advance decide on which topic we're going to discuss, and kind of double click on that, invite other stakeholders from the town to that meeting, and really look in depth, both in terms of what we've already agreed in the work programme, but also in terms of the future, like our next strategic plan. Like, is it working? What else might we want to focus on? So we would have like a topic for each meeting, as well as an update from the other areas, just to kind of brief update in a sense. Otherwise it's a bit too long to leave before we get updates from the other areas. And the idea is that only the areas that kind of are not working so well, or we feel are stalling, rather than the kind of RAG rating of green, 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 are kind of assumed if it's going well, then it's not going to come to council. It's more if it's not going well, or we need some input support. So that's kind of our initial suggestion. Over to you. Fiona?
I really like the idea of deep diving into one sort of area of work each time. I think one of the sort of the motivations behind the sort of the change to the 2 committees was that sort of that wanting to have sort of being able to have sort of more deeper discussions. And I think we've said about future focused as well, looking at things that we could potentially move into would be really helpful. I think there is also something about the sort of the policies and our sort of our general sort of objectives for that area of work, and those, so rather than us just looking at, the next thing and the next project, also, maybe some of the sort of the policies that guide that area of work would be really helpful. I think it's really helpful for sort of lead councillors and staff and leaders, to have that clarity on what, what we're sort of, what is sort of guiding our work. And I agree about focusing on the sort of the, rather than doing the sort of the full sort of presentation and update. I think it's good to have all that information there, maybe in the paper, but then in the discussion, honing in on a couple of things that maybe aren't quite right, but, trusting that councillors and members of the community, if they're interested, will read the full paper. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Paul, do you want to come in?
Could I just clarify, really? Understand the bit about policies and objectives and the kind of the guiding principles of how we're going to take that. That's great. What Carl and I were talking about earlier is at the moment, or historically, the staff have produced quite a detailed update, including where everything is on track. And we were wondering whether you as a committee would would still need that information, or just take it as read that everything's fine unless we tell you, that would enable us as as staff, but also you as a committee, to focus on the areas that are going a bit awry. Would that be all right? Because otherwise there's quite a piece of work to be done by at least 4 people on this committee to sort of go, yeah, we've been doing this lately, we've been doing that lately, and everything's all right. And you multiply that by about maybe 10 objectives times 4 people, and there's 40 pieces of work to do. I don't know, I'm happy to do it, but I wouldn't, if you don't want to do it, we're happy not to, if you like.
I think perhaps, yes, but I think perhaps a reminder each time of, and here's everything else, and everything else is fine. Just so we're aware of, there's all of this stuff and it's absolutely fine, but it's these 3 things that we want to talk about tonight. So, keeping that balance of, look, the vast majority, everything is fine, just maybe just listing, and I think we had that in, as in referencing the work programme. And if we just always have that, here's what this committee is about. Everything is fine apart from A, B, and C. That would help me, I think.
It's like a kind of regular reminder of actually what are the different areas of work of these different priorities.
Yeah, and of course we've also considered ourselves to be fleet of foot, haven't we, in looking at things that crop up in the moment that may not be in the work plan, but nevertheless need to be addressed. So it would be a case of being advised, if anything like that happens, just the knowledge that it may delay something else that we were expecting to continue, and things like that. So that's the sort of thing I think would be very useful.
Nikki and Katie, Rachel, what do you think?
I was just thinking about kind of, how you measure success. So, lots of work in communities is, there's ups and downs. So, how do we, if we're asking to look at tricky things, how do we measure that? How do we know what's tricky, what's difficult? Because it's one thing to one person and one thing to somebody else, and we'd have to maybe work through that with communities.
I think my understanding was more like if there's an area of the work programme that, with the best will in the world, we set these intentions, and then actually you're working on it and you actually get a sense this isn't really working, and it's stalled, or or you need support to kind of to drive it forward. And it's no longer relevant. Peter. Sorry.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to reflect on the fact that the discussions on each topic might be slightly different, in the sense that some of the programs have been going on for some time, and so we're maybe at different stages of development of the work. By contrast, the work that we're doing in the area of the town centre is relatively new, in the sense that we have a new town centre coordinator in Katie. And so it might be a discussion around how certain areas of work are developing, rather than any particular bottlenecks that we're facing. Whereas in other areas, where the work has been going on for some time, it might be a different conversation. So I think I'm just kind of reflecting that those conversations might be different from topic to topic.
Yeah, and obviously we've got Katie new in role in that area really developing, and then we've got Green and Healthy ending.
That's right.
It's going to be quite a different conversation. And actually our proposal was that the next meeting, August, that's the area that we focus on first. I don't know what you think, Fiona, if that's you and Matt would want to come in August.
Or I was going to suggest, or the town centre, as given Katie's new in the role, might be quite interesting, but it also could be, do you rather it was climate up first?
I would happily come along. Unfortunately, I'll be in France.
Okay. There's definitely, because I think one way as well as looking at it is sort of, because I think I could think of sort of 3 questions that would be really helpful for us to have a discussion about when it comes to climate, or like a few questions that's like the kind of the conversations that sort of Matt and I have where I'm sort of a bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure, you know, maybe there's something in that, and maybe there's sort of 3 questions, something that Katie, you and Nick could think of, or 4 or 5, you know, but the sort of the key questions that actually would be really helpful to kind of frame a discussion around questions and sort of, so that it is a discussion. And that's why I think I come in on the policy side, that it's not so much about, like I think with the events, it'd be really helpful for us to have a conversation about what do we really want from our events? What is the criteria? What is the sort of, you know, and to be really clear about that. And then actually the decision making is up to, you know, Rachel and Paul, and, you know, what sort of goes in. But if we have that clarity, I think that would be really helpful, rather than every event's coming every single meeting. Let's have that conversation. And then, yeah.
Rachel, you've been waiting for a while.
I would say, what do I say? I think 2 things. I think doing an update for most of us is quite an easy thing to do. It's writing the discursive paper that takes more time. So, you know, all of us have our eye on our white programme and know where we are, and most of us, that is not going to be an additional piece of work, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, I'm speaking for everyone, but I think pretty much we all know where. Well, yeah, there is that. If we keep it brief, it should be fine. But personally, I would also really welcome a more discursive element to these meetings, because then that feels much more like it is productive rather than rubber stamping, or and really collegiate. For a start, I really love how the table's laid out.
Thank you.
Can we not only talk about problems, can we also celebrate success as well? If we could have, you know, some time on each agenda about talking about some really good things, otherwise the meetings will be a bit down.
If we don't talk about any of the greens.
Yeah, we'll just talk about successes. I think, so, you know, some of the stories, certainly that, you know, Nikki and the team bring forward are just so inspirational. And I think if we could just have a small amount of celebration in each meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, I thought I really only came to one oversight committee meeting, and it was the one, probably the best one, I don't know. Hearing all the stories of Nikki's and Hannah's team. I think it's a very good point. Yeah.
I wonder, just trying to pick up one of the things Fiona was saying then about if there's consensus around the next one is around climate in August. Cara and I were talking about so how would we structure that, and I think it's sort of, if we know what the next one's going to be, then the detailed discussion about how we're going to manage that debate can be had, and it might be a very different type of debate depending on the subject. So I suggest sort of keeping, right, we're going to talk about climate next time, and then, okay, a fortnight or 3 weeks before the meeting, go, okay, what are we going to talk about then, and how are we going to structure it? Might be a good way forward, because it may be a very different discussion. The town centre, for example, a lot of discussion has gone on over the last 6 to 8 months about what we want to do, how we're going to do it, and now the first step in delivery is Katie on board, and perhaps it's a really good way to let Katie settle down for 6 months and then come back and say, this is what I found, these are the challenges, and where do we go from here? I don't know, but maybe sort of do it like that. And there are the other 2 subjects as well. There's community development and comms in the 3rd and 4th part of the remit. Another element or another reason, if you like, of looking at this is perhaps to begin to inform the next work programme. So the next time we start talking about the work programme will be in the autumn. So we'll have had at least one of these discussions around kind of some broad direction of travel that we think is important to sort of home in and develop into the work programme. That can continue over the coming months. You know, if we're thinking this is a kind of an 18-month project at least, then we can begin to sort of put those in as we move forward. So we've got 2 work programmes to look at, really. That's what I was thinking. Marvellous.
I think that all sounds perfectly fine. I was just going to raise one other thing, actually. And again, you might feel it's not relevant for this committee, but I'm just thinking about the fact that considering we're talking about community and place, should housing come into that somewhere along the line? Is that something that we should be considering, or are we talking mainly about our own developments and our own work, or are we able, and is it interesting enough to actually look at those wider issues sometimes? Just a thought.
I'll answer and then I'll pass it to you, Fiona. I mean, my sense is that's such a town-wide hot topic that, well, I guess if there's not a decision, I'm going to answer my contradict myself. I was about to say that I would have thought that could be a great topic for full council. Having said that, if there is no key decision to be made, is that a topic for council?
I think part of doing this was to sort of give more space for us to be able to have those broader conversations at council meetings. And I think part of the remit in the standing orders is now sort of topics of town concern or something that comes under full council. And also being able to do a similar thing at full council is sort of focusing on one topic and being able to sort of deep dive and invite stakeholders and everything in. I think also because we've got the planning committee, that's where that sort of bit, sits. But I think the sort of the broader bit around the housing crisis, I think it would be an interesting topic for a full council meeting. Because also that's the more sort of high profile and the ones where we do have more people there and we can sort of, but it's to sort of, that's a discussion for Paul and I to have at some point about what we do with council meetings. But yeah, going forward.
I'm also wondering, like, when do we, so we need to give enough notice if we're going to invite other stakeholders so that we do kind of know in advance which topic is going to be focused on in each meeting. And then that the lead councillor and lead staff member then work with, like, once you've kind of got your feet on the ground of like, who do we want to really invite and whose voice do we really want to hear? We want to hear everybody's voices, but in like specifically inviting them to those meetings so that it's not just us. No offense. Anita.
Presumably there's nothing wrong with actually dictating, even at this stage, that if there are 4 major topics here, one could be allocated throughout the year. We could just determine the order tonight, almost.
There's no reason not to do that. I mean, the other way of looking at it is at the next meeting, decide what the next agenda item is. There's many ways of doing it, isn't there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's if there's strong consensus about what comes in October, then why wouldn't we do that? But we might think that sort of 2 months ahead is a reasonable frequency. So I don't know.
So are we kind of in agreement that the first one, which is in August, will be on climate? Does that make sense to everybody? Don't we need to vote, do we? I mean, if you want to wave your red card around, go ahead.
I think consensus is nice.
Yeah, that's fine with me. So, having recently been on the Oversight Committee, every time we had one of those, we had quite a few papers from the lead council, not from the lead councils, obviously I don't do papers, from the officers in charge of that department, which is obviously quite a bit of work every time. So, are we saying that we nominate now what the next topic will be for a deep dive? And if it's climate, then Matt and Fiona get together and present a paper for that. But the others have more of a what, because Rachel's work will be on every agenda, but you don't need to do a really big paper on every one that we come to. So if the one after that was events and communications, then obviously we'd expect a bit more detail. So is that how we think we're going to run it?
I mean, I think that's what we're agreeing, and just so my little speech at the beginning, I think it was also, I wanted to set the tone of kind of obviously we have a role of scrutiny, but kind of like that's not the main tone of these meetings. So it's not like Matt has to sweat blood and tears of writing a report that we then scrutinize and look at the RAG ratings, but we actually act as one team, that we all agreed to this strategy, we wrote this strategy, we're all a council delivering it, and then looking at is it working, and what support might people need to, the areas that they're not working so well, or then discussing, is this even correct anymore, or does this need to be relooked at? Do you see the slight nuance?
I think that's right. And if we can have a paper like a week or two before the meeting, then we can prepare questions if necessary for that meeting, and it gives Matt and Fiona, in this case, chance to prepare an answer.
And that we might invite other stakeholders,
Exactly, and yeah.
Katie, have you moved
Sorry,
on?
I was just going to mention, Fiona, do you know that Matt's definitely here in August before we commit?
Message him now.
Knowing that it's the summer holidays and young children.
We can find that out. We've got leave planner. Laura's just looking.
Can I ask that they don't have to be papers? Can they be oral updates? Because I find that so much more interesting rather than reading and then asking questions. If someone comes and talks about their area of work, I don't know whether that's something that is required of us as a council, that we have it written down, but surely it'll be in the recording and it would be in the minutes. If we just have more of a chat, is that formal enough or not?
There are kind of three reasons for writing a report, and my gut instinct is to agree with you. There's a kind of for the record, if there's any member of the public or the community as a whole is interested in what we're doing, or looking back on what we did, then there's something to look at, and sort of the progress through the work programme with those reports gives a kind of a running commentary on progress.
A paper trail.
A paper trail, yeah. But now there are there are videos on YouTube sort of providing the same information. That kind of argument is slightly less, isn't it? There's a scrutiny function that councillors have that we are trying to sort of just not dilute, but kind of broaden out and not so perhaps confrontational. So again, less reason for write a report, present a report to then get cross-examined and all that sort of stuff.
And nitpicked over. I think when you write something down, that then someone can spend hours beforehand poring over it and come up with a really killer question, and I don't think that's right. It's much nicer if we just have a chat about what's going on.
So maybe how does this sound? You expect us to let you know of things that are going awry, as well as having a few celebratory things that think this was really great. And there's a very short presentation from the member of staff going, everything's fine, I'd just like to draw your attention to this one or this one. I don't know what you think about it. Maybe an idea would be to do this. Let's discuss. There would be the minute of that discussion, if you like, quote for the record. It would focus the attention, if you like, on the discussion as opposed to the poring over reports before. And if you wanted Carla, to do that. We could try it for the first time and see how it feels.
I mean, it's my preference as well, and a couple of reasons. One is it does change the dynamic of being scrutinized, and that's, you know, I know we have that function, and it feels like then potentially that's become a bit heavy. And actually, if we think of the purpose of this committee, is really to make sure that the objectives of those different parts of the work programme, the kind of bigger picture, is working towards our strategic priorities. And then we can have a discussion about that, rather than councillors feeling their job is to go through a report and look for clever questions. Not that we see that is, but it does, it's a symbol of actually, we're here to discuss how is this going, you know. And how can we help? Yeah. And how can we help? And I'm wondering if some councillors do prefer a bit of prep. Yeah.
I think as everything, it comes down to balance, because I do kind of agree. I mean, I think also, you know, we all have different levels of understanding about different areas of work. So I think in order for us to have a productive conversation around climate and green healthy food, there will need to be a paper written by Matt that sort of explains where we're at and what's been going on, because otherwise we're just sort of, but that's why I then come back to those sort of questions for discussion idea, because I think that again is not then a sort of, it gets away from what you're saying. But as I said, is it that, you know, what is, I don't know, for something on climate, you know, I'm trying to think of one, because there's loads that sort of coming to my mind, but, you know, sort of, you know, what are sort of our priorities at the end of green healthy food, or what are, you know, what is our approach to commercial energy companies as opposed to community? Like, by the way, I'm just ad-libbing. This isn't right. I'm just trying to say things, you know, that kind of thing that then allows us to have a conversation that would actually be really helpful for me personally, and I think for Matt. You know, is it sort of what, you know, what are the key things we want to get out of our work as a town centre? You know, what is our approach to, you know, is it about sort of, you know, making from, you know, a town centre for locals, or is it about bringing in, like those sort of, like those are the sort of the questions for discussion, I think would just help with what you're both saying, rather than it being, here's a report, let's ask questions. And also that puts us, you know, we're then shaping, and it feels more productive for us as well to show up, because we're then shaping something.
Yeah, just to add to that, it'd be interesting if the reports from the officers were more akin to that, in terms of, rather than Matt just telling us, this is what I've done, this was good, this was bad, actually dreaming a little bit, and what's his perspective on what we need to do going forward. Like, it's a bit more interactive. That would be quite interesting. Yeah.
It's more interactive, and it's more, I want to hear what Katie's experience has been talking to, you know, people in the town, talking to businesses, talking to the Chamber of Commerce. You know, maybe it's an update from the Chamber of Commerce. Sorry, over to you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I agree, but also it's about looking forward, not back. So it's not always just documenting what has been done, but looking forward and seeing where the support is and what ideas are out there. And that's the beauty of the collegiate relationship.
And potentially it could be up to each area to decide, like you say, some of them, they're going to be different conversations. And if some is like data, detail heavy, it's probably going to be more useful to have a report. If something is more emergent and more with future visioning in a sense, there's not going to be much on that report. Other comments, ideas? Mark, how does that sound? Are you sure? Your body language says otherwise. Okay. Sorry, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is the item for debate needs some thought about how the debate will be structured, some prep work about reports in good time to allow people to sort of pore over them a bit, and time to invite specific people we think we might want to hear from. So there's a kind of a package of stuff there. The update from at least the three other work strands that aren't under the microscope. What do you think about Anne's suggestion about just verbally updating on the night?
I think that was the point I was making, that, you know, we picked one as a deep dive, like we did at oversight. That can, I think some sort of paper is necessary, as you say, for scrutiny and for a record. And it also gives us a structure for our debate, and we can, I don't think many of us, hardly any of us, are in the nitpicking business. We're not trying to catch people out. We're not going to try, well, I don't think you should have said that, because we'll bring that up with them before the meeting if necessary. None of us want to catch anybody out. So that's a good idea. And as you say, the other things can be verbal and just updates as necessary, and any issues that we actually need to deal with, or problems that we can foresee.
Just sort of drawing those 2 points together that Anita just made as well, and the new stuff. And I think inevitably, if there's a new opportunity or a new problem that comes up, then that might require a short report, sort of saying, these are the issues to discuss. And I think there's that element there that enables us to come forward with something that, as opportunities arise. But the work program update is now a verbal thing, or at least the next time.
I think it's really nice that we're not being too prescriptive. And that feels like the right way to go for this, that each topic will demand its own parameters, its own format, whatever. And we can almost feel as we go about what works best, or it may be that we have to use different formats for every single topic. But be really nice not to be too prescriptive, because then we can slot in anything else on the agenda that might need a discussion. So, yeah.
I think it's a new committee, you know, we're trying it out, we're seeing how it works, so open to feedback. Dear Deputy, did you have anything to say?
Main be a forum for discussion. I think we all get a lot of papers, things, and first put my hand up and say I don't read much of it because I don't have time to, but we all are in the same boat, I know. And I think where we can find in council meetings is things are often brought to the agenda and there isn't enough time for discussion. And we're expected to vote and have an opinion really quickly on things that we're not that deep into, because we've all got our things that we are deep into. So I think another forum for discussion without the need to necessarily make decisions, but explore options. And I certainly agree with you about looking forward as well as looking backward. It's not just about reviewing what we've done, things that we've done and boxes that have been ticked. I think it's definitely about looking at what our options are in certain areas, particularly some of our, you know, vaguer areas. So yeah, that's my view.
Thank you. Anyone, Tracy or Steve? Tracy or Steve, we haven't heard your voices yet. Did you have anything to add? You don't have to. But...
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are we there? Is that kind of enough clarity to start? Have we got a yes from Matt?
He hasn't got back to you.
He's on holiday.
He's on holiday, okay. Okay, so it won't be climate, the next one.
Just to add to that is I agree with it not being too prescriptive. As you say, it's a new committee. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know what's going to come up. We don't know what kind of processes are going to work best. So I think a bit of trial and error, certainly for our first couple of meetings, is a really good idea, and seeing how it rolls.
Great, thank you.
Rachel, are you here? I mean, why don't we do communications then? Because that, you know, and I'm happy to work with Carla and you on that as well.
I've been voluntold. Is that acceptable? Yep. Okay, so comms will be the major topic for the next meeting, with updates, however, in the form of drama, I think. However you choose. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay. So our next meeting will be at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 6th of August. Thank you.